Coming soon to own on video and DVD.
これでラッシュアワー3に出番はない
And now, our feature presentation.
Howdy everyone! So I've been thinking about DVDs a lot lately. In case you haven't noticed, they're everywhere. You could buy them at your local dollar store. You could find them on the side of the road waiting to get picked up, recycled, or left to languish for all eternity. If a world-changing event decimated society as we know it, they'd be just as likely to become our post-apocalyptic currency as bottle caps would. The digital video disc currently leads physical home movie sales, accounting for nearly 61% of movies sold on disc as recently as the week I started writing this essay. And that got me curious about why that's the case. What about these humble little disky boys are so special that they can outsell functionally similar, higher quality products by such an insane margin? Well, as I figured out over the course of research in this video, a lot actually. DVDs. Wow, what a format. What many of us know as the technology that ultimately killed VHS first hit the scene in the mid-90s as the result of a collaboration between Toshiba, Warner Brothers, Sony, and Philips. To keep a long story short, these companies came together to create a single media standard and prevent a format war like the one that had been waged between JVC and Sony over VHS and Betamax respectively. They saw the writing on the wall that discs were the future, and wanted to come up with one that could hold entire movies on them in high quality, could be made for next to nothing, and could boast additional functionality. Thus, digital video discs were born. They were the size of a CD or a VCD, yet could hold several times the amount of data. You could play it on your PC, a PlayStation 2 after that hit the market, or a dedicated DVD player. Best of all, having all that space and compatibility with so many types of hardware meant that they could add a whole slew of weird goodies to their releases, like the straight-up photo editor on the Extreme DVD release of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which could transform you into a T-800 or T-1000. I distinctly remember watching Batman Forever, which was my family's first DVD, back in 1999 on our first computer, and being blown away by the interactive menus and all the things you could do on a DVD that you couldn't do with a VHS tape. Mind you, I was 4 years old and still found jingling keys amusing, but it's still a core memory from my childhood and was my introduction to several actors I love to this day: Jim Carrey, Val Kilmer, and Nicole Kidman.
That's fast work. You just moved here.
Well, you could say he just kind of dropped out of the sky and bam.
This better not awaken anything in me.
I also remember my family's first DVD player, the Apex AD5131. That thing was sick. It could hold 3 discs at once, doubled as a karaoke machine, and I honestly wish my family never got rid of it. I mean, imagine being able to binge every Back to the Future movie without having to get off your couch in 2001. As a guy that regularly watches TV box sets on his UHD Blu-ray player, I yearn for the days of being able to own an affordable multi-disc unit like that. Look, my point is that DVDs are awesome, and that they have a special place in my heart. And, as I already mentioned in the cold open, that they continue to be special, or at least valuable to a lot of people. So today, I thought I'd explore why that is by geeking out about one of film's most enduring symbols. But first, a quick plug. If you're enjoying this video so far, I invite you to support my channel and what I do here by subscribing, enabling notifications so you know when I post future uploads, and by answering the following question of the day in the comments. What was your first DVD that you or your family bought, and what do you think of the movie, show, or whatever it is these days? You're also welcome to go the extra mile in supporting this channel by checking out my Patreon or becoming a channel member. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. So, full disclosure, I won't be labeling what's DVD footage versus Blu-ray or 4K footage here unless there's a motivated reason to, mostly because that would make this video take forever to make. Likewise, I'll be cutting to Blu-ray footage in many cases throughout this video because, at least in cases that are not labeled otherwise, the quality difference between a Blu-ray and a DVD isn't the point I'm trying to make. Okay? Okay. Cool. Okay. The main benefit of owning something on DVD is that you actually own it. It's a physical item that takes up physical space in your home. It's nothing like a streaming service or online storefront that can yoink media that you paid for out of your library, or close and force you to lose access to all of your content at once. With a DVD, you own a tangible piece of that media and can rest knowing that it can't get taken away from you. Additionally, you can rest easy knowing that it's a copy of the media that you don't need a subscription or premium add-on to access, like you would if you were subscribed to something like Hulu or Paramount Plus. Sure, armed robbery is a thing and you could always break a disc or suffer from disc rot, but what are the chances of someone breaking into your house and stealing a DVD of all things, or you stepping on a DVD that wasn't put back in its case?
So you're missing a Batman DVD?
My Dark Knight extended cut, it wasn't insured.
As for the disc rot, your average DVD should last anywhere from 30 to 100 years if it's properly stored and cared for. In the case of some discs, like ones that were produced by Warner Bros. Between 2006 and 2008, you might even be able to get them replaced on account of the rot being the result of a defect. And when the alternative to having to maybe eventually deal with your DVDs disintegrating before your very eyes is contending with how you're effectively borrowing the movies you watch digitally, I think the former of the two sounds more appealing. It's a choice that gets validated further when you remember that a DVD collection doesn't need an internet connection to be accessible, can still be taken on the go with an inexpensive portable player, or get ripped to run locally on a PC or phone, and won't be subject to ads unless you happen to own a DVD player that could record TV and are still using those discs. That point I just made about internet access is an important one, as it likely accounts for some of the medium's continued relevance in 2025. The simple reality is that high-speed internet access isn't a given in many places in the world, including high-income countries like the United States. There is a huge disparity in access to it throughout the country, as well as in the options available to consumers.
Residents here say the internet offered by private companies is so slow, many go to the library for a reliable connection.
The data tech company Broadband Now estimates that 42 million people don't have access to broadband internet, which was defined as having a minimum speed of 25 megabits per second download or 3 megabits per second upload speeds back in 2023. To put that into perspective for you, there are only 340 million people in the US, so that means that roughly 12% of the population doesn't have broadband. So while you may only need an internet speed of 3 to 5 megabits per second to stream something in standard definition, you can see how a lot of people may just opt to rock a DVD in conjunction with something like cable instead. Especially since US Census data from 2022 estimates that 175,000 American households are still using dial-up that can't hit those speeds to begin with, and that 11.5 million households don't have home internet.
I don't have online though.
What does that mean? You don't have online?
No.
The value of DVDs in contemporary society goes one step further when you remember how affordable they are too. I'm not even talking about the aftermarket here or anything. DVDs are dirt cheap now. I went to Walmart around the time I got the idea for this video and was blown away by how affordable they are. You can buy the entire Christopher Reeve run as Superman for $10, as opposed to the UHD version's normal price of $135. You can buy a 10-film collection of Tom Cruise movies that include absolute bangers like Collateral, Top Gun, Edge of Tomorrow, Tropic Thunder, Minority Report, and War of the Worlds for $13. Heck, if you don't mind spending a bit more money, you could purchase all 201 episodes of The Office for $75. That's less than 40 cents per episode, or just over 4 months of Peacock Premium Plus.
Buttlicker, our prices have never been lower!
We haven't even gotten to their bargain bins, which are often overflowing with everything from family movie staples to classic action movies or flicks you probably forgot existed in the first place. Their price? It's usually $5. New releases are also cheaper on DVD than they are on digital, Blu-ray, or UHD. Granted, it's not that much cheaper, and digital usually costs the same as the DVD does, but you're still getting that physical version of the movie that you can keep forever at a competitive price. Plus, you don't have to buy these movies new, or at all for that matter. If you've ever walked into a Value Village or Goodwill before, you probably know that you can score heaps of movies for next to nothing. In fact, most of my media collection consists of used media. Along with frequent trips to thrift and secondhand stores, a good portion of the DVDs, CDs, and vinyl I own were amassed from stores like FYE, since they always used to run buy two get one free deals on used items, or by stopping at garage sales and checking what people left out on their curb. This example isn't directly about DVDs. Well, I mean, it kind of is since they're printed on them, but I once straight up found a Nintendo Wii and several games for it on the side of the road. It was just sitting there, fully functional and waiting to be brought to a new home. The only things I had to buy for it were some AV cables and a case for the copy of Wii Sports that was inside the console. The best part of all of this is that you don't have to scour your streets to find this stuff if you don't want to. Thanks to services like Facebook Marketplace, you could build a decent library in no time without having to spend a dime.
Somebody threw out a whole couch and it's in great shape.
Yeah, you put a little Febreze on that, scrub it out a little bit, look great in your apartment.
Speaking of libraries, that's another option. You could literally go to your local library and have access to an insane collection of movies and TV shows for free. And books, so I'm told. This is how I've watched somewhere close to half of the movies I've seen over the past few years, and it's a great throwback to how I used to do the same thing with my parents all the time as a kid. I'm blessed with a library network that happens to carry everything from silent to foreign classics, the latest releases, and has the infrastructure to transfer them from location to location in only a day or two. This doesn't just apply to DVDs too, as they carry Blu-rays and UHDs. I tend to go at least once or twice a week, have at least one movie and a book waiting on hold for me when I do, and then grab a few more items if anything catches my eye while I'm there. When I say that building a collection doesn't have to be expensive, I mean it. While it may be true that rarer discs can fetch a pretty penny, or that there are a plethora of online or in-person shops and sellers that can and will try to pull a fast one on you, you could also totally get a good deal on flicks too. All it takes is a bit of patience, a little luck, and maybe a trip to getdvdprices.com to know what other people are charging. Or, again, a trip to your library that you should totally support since they've had their funding cut this year.
I am so sorry. You must understand we are reeling from budget cuts. I lost 2 dedicated clerks last month because I couldn't afford to pay them a competitive wage. They make more money at McDonald's.
And if you really need one last practical reason to own DVDs in this day and age, it's because there were a ton of movies that never made it off the format. Whether it's because of licensing issues, obscurity, or any other reason, a lot of cool and sometimes iconic stuff never got an HD upgrade. If anything, we should consider ourselves lucky that half of these movies made it to DVD at all, since there's an even larger score of films and shows that never left VHS.
I have discovered more information than any hacker ever has. Ever.
So there you have it, some of the key reasons for DVD's continued relevance. They're usually affordable. There's a bunch of cool, random stuff available to watch, and they're yours to keep. Unless you borrow them from a library, in which case, yeah, don't be a dick. Return those.
Buttheads.
To be honest with you, the economic factors of building a humble media stockpile was the big one for me, and it was a huge part of why I wanted to explore the continued interest in the format. You see, I recently started going through some career and family stuff a few months ago, and that, coupled with what I'll just call recent economic instability, led to me tightening my purse strings, namely by unsubscribing from almost every paid streaming service I was signed up for and opting to borrow or buy DVDs whenever I needed to instead. After all, I love movies. Like I said in my video about watching a movie a day in 2024, it's the closest thing I have to a vice. Ergo, watching less of them was never a serious consideration for me, especially after I've spent a long day at work and just want to turn my brain off and look at pretty pictures for a while.
Can you stop watching TV for a moment?
No.
Why?
I had a bad day. I had to subvert my principles and kowtow to an idiot. Television makes these daily sacrifices possible. Deadens the inner core of my being.
Because of this, I naturally turned to watching more DVDs, and was happy to do so, aside from a single worry I had about returning to the medium. You know what I'm about to talk about. There's a good chance that it's one of the first reasons not to use DVDs that you thought of when you saw Nicole Kidman in this video's thumbnail. And on the off chance that it wasn't, and you still don't know where I'm going with this, maybe take a sec to pop the YouTube player up and check the chapter title. Quality, from the old French word qualité, meaning temperament, character, or disposition. DVD, from the Germanic discus von disci disc, meaning not. Jokes aside, it's a fair concern to raise, even if I do think that the benefits of the format outweigh its limitations. Your run-of-the-mill disc rocks a 480p/480i resolution, or 567 if it's PAL. A standard Blu-ray is double that at 1080p resolution, and a 4K Blu-ray, which I've been calling UHDs for this video, is a whopping 2 times larger than that since it's 2160p. I mean, just try to imagine how many DVD images it would take to fit within a single UHD frame. So, right off the bat, and without any sugarcoating, yes, many DVDs do not look as good as more contemporary options, particularly older ones that may also share a master with a Laserdisc release, weren't given much love in the first place, or were letterboxed widescreen releases that sliced the resolution down even more. However, that's not to say that these discs don't pass the sniff test from time to time, or that there aren't cases when you're still better off going with one over a technically superior release. To make sense of what I mean by this, here's a very simplified rundown on how playing a DVD on a modern television works. Your media gets placed into a player of some kind, either a DVD player or a Blu-ray player, or hey, maybe just selected on an app like Plex. But because your DVD is 480p or 480i, it'll need to be upscaled to take up your entire screen.
What is this?
A center for ants? The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
To do that, it means that your device or app is gonna need to blow your picture up and make each of your file's pixels work overtime in the process. This is ultimately why DVDs can look soft or blurry on modern televisions, as well as in this video itself, since Premiere's native upscaler isn't the best, and anything it outputs is subject to YouTube compressing the hell out of it more anyway. These discs were never intended to be played on such a high-resolution screen, and were limited by their storage capacity as far as the data they contain is concerned.
I'm limited by the technology of my time, but one day you'll figure this out.
In TNG speak, there just isn't enough Brett Spiners to go around. It's basically the inverse of how a lot of movies and TV shows look absolutely dreadful when you stream them due to how compressed they are. There's too much data for a measly 6 megabit per second 1080p stream to contain on Hulu, which is the real number they share on their help desk, by the way. Yet, unlike that Hulu stream, there are a few things you can do to make some minor improvements to how a DVD looks. For starters, you can make sure that you're getting the cleanest possible connection to your player. If you're using a modern Blu-ray player or a streaming stick paired with Plex, Jellyfin, MB, or whatever, you're probably good to go on this front since you're most likely rocking an HDMI connection. Additionally, if you intend to watch your movies on the old family DVD player, you might want to either double check to see if the unit supports component or HDMI over composite/RCA, or if your local electronics store has a better option in stock that's in your budget. I know how much of a cop-out buy a better DVD player or grab a Blu-ray one is, but it's probably for the best if you're that concerned about quality, since you're more likely to get a cleaner picture if you go this route. This all comes down to the upscaling I mentioned a moment ago. Basically, using a device that's better tuned for doing that will generally lead to a better looking movie or TV show than if you defaulted to letting your TV or streaming stick do it. If you want to take things a step further, you could also go into your TV settings and play with them in order to make things a bit sharper. I'm not the kind of person who likes to do this normally, but I do think that it's reasonable to add a tiny bit of sharpness or contrast when you're rocking a DVD. I personally have a preset saved just for the occasion on my TV and my UHD player. Another somewhat practical option is to lean into the nostalgia of the format and your old player even further by using a CRT TV if you have one laying around. It's not ideal as far as practicality or avoiding back pain goes, but CRTs do have great black levels when compared to LCD screens, and are a great way of punching up the clarity of a DVD since they were what many of the movies on the format were designed to be seen on. Also, like, come on, it's fun, look at this thing. See? Fun! Remember the Rumble in the Bronx episode of my podcast, Glaring Admissions? Well, guess what? That's exactly what I did when I wanted to check out the Hong Kong cut of the movie, and it looked way better than it did than when I tested it on my 75-inch 4K set. On top of that, it gave the movie that extra retro oomph that I had partially selected the film to bask in. My CRT was able to mask the exceptionally low quality of the copy of the movie I had, and made a more memorable experience in the process. To be clear, this isn't going to make your old DVDs look on par with Blu-ray, but it will help. Is it worth buying a CRT to do this? Probably not, but it's still worth a shot if you have one laying around or can find one for a couple of bucks. That being said, let's also recall that a DVD will almost always look worse than a Blu-ray or UHD. This ain't exactly rocket science, as a DVD is significantly smaller in storage capacity, is used to store smaller resolution files, and lacks support for features like HDR.
What could that possibly be? My slipping! Calm down!
Whereas a DVD usually plays content back at an average of 8 or 9 megabits per second, they're usually wrapped in MPEG-2 and is more comparable to about 4 or so megabits per second in H.264, aka the most commonly used codec today. For reference, a movie that's been printed onto a Blu-ray can hit an average bitrate of anywhere from 20 to 40 megabits per second. As for UHD, that number can run from 50 to 60 megabits all the way up to 100 depending on what you're watching and how big the disc it was printed onto is. However, I don't think that nullifies DVD's place in society, since one could argue that they can occasionally beat streaming and those other disc formats. Let's not forget that breakdown I grabbed from Hulu. Assuming they're rewrapping their standard definition content in H.264, they play that content back at an average of 1.5 megabits per second. And seeing as we know that MPEG-2 is about half as efficient as that codec, that means they're streaming episodes of shows like Scrubs, Ally McBeal, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer at less than half of what those exact shows can output on a DVD. The math doesn't get much better if we assume that Hulu is using H.265. That codec is approximately twice as efficient as H.264, so 1.5 megabits per second on that codec converts to about 3, which counts as 6 for an MPEG-2, which is good, but still lower than what a DVD can do. If you've ever tried to stream Buffy the Vampire Slayer before, you'll know as well as I do that it looks rough on an HD TV. Either you're stuck with the eyesore that's its HD transfer, or you have a show that looks like it's decomposing whenever it's dark thanks to, and to quote Metal Gear Awesome, all that
fuzzy compression bullshit.
Likewise, there are cases when HD versions of some content looks muddier on streaming than they would on a normal DVD, such as in the case of one of my favorite shows of all time, Twin Peaks. Not only does the show lack its very charming Log Lady intros on streaming, but its current home, Paramount Plus, is streaming it at roughly the same quality as Hulu used to. And when a show was shot on film and is as textured and grainy as Twin Peaks is, 5 megabits per second simply isn't enough.
One day the sadness will end.
Though I personally prefer to stick to my Blu-ray set of the full series, I ended up picking up the series on DVD for the sake of comparison, and yeah, I genuinely think it beats streaming. If you run the numbers, the DVD is playing at approximately the same bitrate as Paramount Plus's 1080p stream, while also having to deal with half the resolution, which results in less artifacting and better picture integrity. To use a few more TV shows as an example, let's think about two of the most popular sitcoms of all time, Friends and Seinfeld. Both of these shows first came out in the 90s, when the 4:3 aspect ratio and standard definition was king. Yet, if you try to revisit them on streaming services, you'll see that they're both available in 4K with HDR and in 16:9.
Bupkis.
Now, to be fully honest, I don't mind watching them this way, and I appreciate the convenience of being able to access these shows in the single click of a button. However, this isn't accurate to how they were expected to be seen, and can lead to certain jokes getting cropped, or just generally strange framing, as in order to accomplish a 16:9 aspect ratio, the image had to be widened in one of two ways. Without getting too technical, additional parts of the image could get added in via the original negative, or a 4:3 image could get zoomed into. In the case of adding information that had originally been cropped, you run the risk of accidentally breaking continuity or immersion. After all, The additional information on the sides of the image were never intended to be seen, since widescreen television wasn't really a thing yet. One of the best examples of this is the HD master for Buffy that I just mentioned, and I highly recommend the video that's on screen right now if you're interested in learning more about that problem. As for cropping in, you're zooming in on a shot that's already been framed. You're obviously going to lose information that the filmmakers intended for you to see. The added detail from these HD masters may be nice, but their composition's been compromised and can become distracting if you lean on the observant side. Yeah, it's better than the old HD masters and the DVDs as far as resolution goes, and the HDR is there, I guess, but I'd still pick the correct framing over it any day. The same goes for any number of movies out there that have since had their color timing or sound mix updated. DVD is a great way to get those original mixes and grades at a low price. For all the Star Wars fans in the audience, it's also the last unaltered home release of the original trilogy. There's another way that DVDs can occasionally beat streaming in that area. I'm gonna get right to the point with this one and just say that DVDs support surround sound, and that several popular streamers don't. That alone is a huge win for the format in my eyes, as surround sound setups are fairly inexpensive these days, and because people with the proper equipment should absolutely be able to take advantage of it. Especially since a lot of the movies on these streaming services have surround sound mixes, and in the case of Tubi, maybe playing them back to us mixed down into stereo. And it doesn't stop with streaming either, as there are tons of movies and TV shows out there that are arguably as good as, or in some cases better on DVD than they are on an HD disc. Let's start by discussing Twin Peaks again, since we were just talking about it a second ago. The iconic series may have a stellar HD release and, in my opinion, be a great candidate for some Dolby Vision support on an eventual 4K one. But there's genuinely something magical about watching the show on DVD. The blurriness of standard definition keys into the heart of the series for me. The original Twin Peaks feels like a liminal place since it's a deeply sentimental show that exists in a state of heightened emotion. Nostalgia is a major component of Twin Peaks thanks to Lynch's love of Americana. And even though the original show takes place in 1989, you wouldn't be foolish for mistaking the world it inhabits for the 1950s or 60s. And the added fuzz that you get from watching the series in standard def adds to that. In its own strange way, the DVD release feels more like the Twin Peaks that Lynch and Frost set out to create. After all, the show was produced for television in the early 90s, and as such, was arguably never intended to be seen in formats that could better capture the fidelity of the 35mm film it was shot on. I found that many Golden Age Hollywood films look great on DVD for a similar reason. I understand that you can watch stuff like His Girl Friday or It's a Wonderful Life on UHD and that they look incredible in 4K, but I don't think I necessarily care. Just as with Twin Peaks, there's something comforting about the lack of clarity in the image. It simulates watching a worn print on some level, and the lower quality has the added benefit of hiding some of the seams in these movies. Have you ever noticed that you could tell when a movie's about to do a dissolve thanks to the quality getting worse? Well, it's harder to do that when you're looking at a lower quality copy of a movie. Not a fan of how uncanny rear projection shots can look? Here comes the low resolution of a DVD to better blend those layers together. This doesn't only apply to Golden Age Hollywood productions too. Here's a shot from the 4K release of Jurassic Park that's noticeably faded, but looks just fine on the DVD. Check out this painfully obvious wire in 1989's RoboCop, and note how it becomes harder to spot when you're watching the movie on DVD. It's still there, and it's not that hard to notice, but the inferior picture quality makes it a bit harder to pick up on, especially the part that intersects with Ed 209's head. Classic TV shows are another great example of seam hiding, as they often make use of stock footage for establishing shots and transitions that seldom get rescanned for their HD master, and have a similar problem with effects shots in some cases. This also includes all of the goofs or details that the guys behind TNG hoped you'd never notice, as highlighted in Red Letter Media's Star Trek The Next Generation Mistakes video. And whatever the hell this is. Kevin Smith's first film, Clerks, is one that I actively prefer on DVD. It was shot on grainy, black and white 16mm, and there's something about the lower resolution that complements it. I won't pretend that the movie doesn't look great on Blu-ray, but the lack of detail feels like a worthwhile addition to the film's look. It's one of those less is more instances that fits the aesthetic of the movie. It may not have been the intended look, but we're talking about Clerks. There wasn't even intentionality with the movie being in black and white. Smith was just broke.
You know, the reason is people think it's a creative choice. It was because there was no money, right?
That's right. Like,
I always have to say that because I don't want everyone thinking like, oh, he did it. It was creative and stuff. But it was
you bet I was a real artist.
Yeah.
I'm all for respecting a director's intentions and all, but I also subscribe to a certain amount of death of the author. If something as minor as watching this, or say Richard Linklater's Slacker in lower quality, can key into the spirit of what the film's trying to embody, I'm all for keeping a copy of it on DVD or even VHS.
Hey, look at me, I'm making it. I may live badly, but at least I don't have to work to do it.
Does the lower quality ever bother me? Well, yeah, of course it does. A movie like 2001: A Space Odyssey is still a marvel in standard def, but there's no doubt that I'd rather watch it on UHD. That isn't the point though, is it? Not every movie needs to be seen in the highest possible quality. Sometimes a DVD is more than enough to appreciate something. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna lose that much sleep from watching Johnny English or Eagle vs. Shark on DVD, or Wayne's World and movies like 28 Days Later and Inland Empire. In the case of Johnny English and Eagle vs. Shark, there isn't that much of a difference between the DVD and Blu-ray outside of resolution and bitrate since they're using the same DVD-era master.
I remember every agent would carry a pen that looked just like this. Completely innocent to the untrained eye, but click it twice.
And yeah, Wayne's World does look leagues better on Blu-ray or UHD. However, it's Wayne's World. It's not a great movie because of its cinematography or framing. It's a great movie because it's funny.
Well, that's where I see things just a little differently.
As for 28 Days Later, most of that movie was shot in standard definition anyway. Yes, the very end of the film was shot on 35mm as a part of a very motivated shift, but the effect is still there on the DVD anyway, even if it is a bit more muted. The same applies to Inland Empire, which was shot on DV and had to get an AI upscale when it came time to put it out on Blu-ray. Though each of these examples, aside from Inland Empire maybe, are certainly better in HD, I don't know if they're better enough to warrant seeking them out if you already have them in standard def, can get a copy of it for dirt cheap, or borrow one from a friend or your library. Plus, it's not like there isn't a shortage of newer releases that use inferior masters when compared to their DVDs. Here's looking at you, Terminator 2, Jaws 3, and Aliens on UHD. These releases may boast a higher resolution than their standard definition counterparts, include HDR and more, but they're also worse for some viewers due to altered color timing, going way too hard on the digital noise removal, or using AI to try and upgrade the picture quality further at the cost of... Dude, I don't even know what the f is happening here. When it comes to watching a movie on DVD, I'm often reminded of one of the first things a film professor told me in college. Quality doesn't matter. By all means, make sure your video and sound quality is good, but don't get too hung up on it once your quality hits that good enough threshold. If you can make out what people are saying and doing, you're probably good to go. Now, he was obviously talking about the act of creating films when he said that, but I think the same idea applies to consuming them. The truth is that the human eye can adapt to diminished picture quality pretty easily. So long as it isn't fluctuating in and out of high quality every 2 seconds, most people should be able to get used to watching something on DVD since it's good enough. Sure, we may suffer from cases of FOMO when we pick something in standard def over HD, but make no mistake, we can still adapt to it.
He looks agitated. He's losing it! Stevens, your gun! No, wait! I'm okay.
So rather than worry about watching every movie in as high quality as possible, I'd rather make sure that I can make out what's happening and focus on appreciating the story itself. Which is the perfect segue for the final stretch of this video, where I'm going to talk about the ways that watching more movies on DVD deepened my relationship with film, and how it may do the same for you. The clearest way that owning a film on DVD changes our relationship with it is that it literally makes us care about it more. Research tells us that physical media, be it books, pictures, movies, vinyl, etc., tend to be given higher monetary evaluations by consumers than digital versions of the same media. We care about things that exist in our world more than we do their digital counterparts, and I like to think that this fondness finds its way into how we display and store them. These objects are a part of us. A person's movie collection can tell you a lot about them, and the movies you decide to add to or keep in your collection can tell you something about yourself too. I'd even go as far as to suggest that borrowing a DVD from a friend or the library feels like a weightier decision than renting the same exact movie online does, regardless of whether or not you paid to borrow it. There's also something to be said about the finite size of a physical library and how it impacts you and why you choose to watch the media you seek out. There's a new term that's been picking up some steam lately called algorithm fatigue, and it's exactly what you think it is. Basically, in an era where our time and attention spans have become a high-value item to app developers, streaming services, and more, a lot of folks have become overwhelmed by the number of choices at their fingertips.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
There are so many options for things to watch on your TV, YouTube, or social media that it's refreshing to be given a smaller set of options to leaf through. It's why curated streaming services like Mubi and the Criterion Channel are so popular, and one of the reasons why physical media is still valuable. James Tucker put it well in a 2023 article where he compared DVDs to streaming when he said, "A big reason physical media beats streaming is psychological. I can't tell you how many times we've flipped through Netflix or Amazon for over an hour trying to find something to watch. There are too many choices. Renting a DVD is like an investment. You feel compelled to watch it right away. If you are old enough to remember browsing the aisles at Blockbuster or another movie rental store, you probably remember how you couldn't wait to get home to watch. By comparison, I've found myself browsing through a streaming service and saying I want to see that, but never getting back to it." I get where Tucker's coming from. Having a physical disc right in front of you does make it easier to bite the bullet on watching a movie. After all, it's right there, and it doesn't feel half as abstract as a cover on Netflix does, even when the latter option has an engagement farming leaving soon sticker on it. Physical releases are special because they occupy space in our world. Just as people can leaf through an album's liner notes while they're listening to a record or CD, we can leaf through any booklets that come with our movies, or study the cover art.
I think the home video versions of my films are the definitive versions because, being able to hold it in your hand and see the artwork and the posters and have the names, it's a real thing.
I think the best way that I can explain the appeal of physical media is that owning a movie we like on it gives us a means of expressing ourselves and our love of that media. Given the fact that we can only own as many movies as we have the space for in our homes, we're forced to occasionally go through our collections and decide what to hold on to and what to let go of. There's an opportunity to confront what certain movies mean to us, whether or not we like them, or whether we like them enough to keep a copy of them in our homes. This isn't about DVDs specifically, but I think it's a great example nonetheless. I've long made it clear that I'm obsessed with Back to the Future. It's arguably my favorite trilogy. It reminds me of my deceased childhood best friend Mike, and I seemingly can't make a video without cutting to it for B-roll or at least mentioning it. And while I own the movies on UHD, and that's my preferred format to watch them on, I also still own them on a worn-out VHS tape of a TV marathon I recorded as a kid, and via its 25th anniversary Blu-ray set for no other reason than it reminds me of my buddy Mike and of growing up. That Blu-ray set is the one I got with him after I replaced the DVD set we used to watch, then gave to him when I was upgrading to the UHDs. Coincidentally, it's the one his family returned to me after he passed as a memento to remember him by. It's proof to me that physical media means something to us that digital versions of the same content never could. A physical release makes a film become more than its contents. It turns them into symbols of our life stories, our relationships, and of our individuality. A DVD is our snakeskin jacket from Wild at Heart.
This is a snakeskin jacket. And for me, it's a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom. Asshole.
Physical media also opens the door to connecting with other people. Going to a video store or a library to check out some movies means potentially having a conversation with someone that works there, or another person that's skimming the aisles for something to watch too. It encourages the foundation of community and gives a lot of people some much needed human contact. One of my favorite examples of this is a fairly recent news story about a mother that rents the same handful of movies, that she already owns by the way, from a video store for her daughter that has Down syndrome. Their trips to the store is a ritual for them, and one that does a lot of good for her mostly nonverbal daughter. So, when that store unfortunately closed earlier this year and the owner shifted focus to the convenience store he owns next door, he decided to do something incredible. He created a miniature video section inside his other store and put all of her favorite movies right there in the front of it. This is an amazing, touching story that I seriously can't do justice, so I'll just let the story speak for itself via a clip and link the full story in the card/video description.
This was one of my first jobs. I remember back in high school, her bringing her daughter in, getting the movies, and it's been that long.
He probably should have closed sooner. Oh dear. But he kept it open for her.
Not to mention, the contents of that, content have the potential to affect the way we look at a piece of media. That example I shared when I was talking about Twin Peaks a bit ago was only the beginning.
Right.
In conjunction to adding some nostalgia to your favorite TV show, a DVD release can encourage you to approach watching it from a different angle. You remember how I was talking about aspect ratios on old TV shows and how DVDs allow us to watch them in their original ratio? Well, this point I'm about to make is almost the opposite of that. In the case of those classic TV shows, DVDs were restoring those shows to something that better represented their original broadcast formats. Yet, what I'm talking about now is using a DVD to allow yourself to get away from the way that something is quote-unquote supposed to look. If you'll recall, 4x3 was king for a large chunk of DVD's heyday. So when a ton of movies made their way onto the format, they went through a process that resembled the opposite of what Friends and Seinfeld went through when they got remastered in HD. Whereas Friends had the sides of its frame opened up to convert it into widescreen, some movies opened their mat to fit a 4x3 television. And whereas Seinfeld got cropped from 4x3 to fit a 16:9 screen, other movies used a method known as pan and scan to selectively zoom in and reframe shots. Then there's whatever the hell Pixar was doing at the time, as they'd straight up go back to some of their theatrically released films and reframe them for home video. What this results in is a new way to watch movies that you may already know like the back of your hand. That added information on the top and bottom, or missing information from a crop, changes our relationship with a movie. After all, film is a visual medium, and a lot of its language is dictated by what we can and can't see at any given moment. So it stands to reason that omitting something that the cinematographer and director originally chose to put there, or including additional information on the top and bottom, can alter how we perceive a scene. In my opinion, seeing how a film works around composition limitations after a movie's already been shot is a great way to study framing and blocking. It gives you the opportunity to acknowledge the deliberation that went into the original framing, and how this altered presentation meddles with that. A lot's been said over the years about respecting a director's vision and trying to watch movies in as close to their theatrical form as possible. But I think there's a case to be made for occasionally breaking from that in order to gain a tighter understanding of why a director and cinematographer framed something a certain way to begin with. Additionally, the variety is just plain fun and makes for a great way to shake up watching a movie you know. Take this DVD release of They Call Me Trinity, for instance. It looks absolutely terrible, right? It's cropped all the way down to 4x3 from CinemaScope, it's clearly sourced from a VHS tape, and the sound is absolutely horrendous. And yet, I kinda love it. I'll never defend it as a viable or particularly good way to enjoy the movie, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't fascinate me or get played from time to time. Hell, even this release's backstory is interesting. This is a real release of the movie that my family bought at a Pathmark in the early 2000s. Apparently, They Call Me Trinity's copyright status was somewhat complicated for a while, and it was once considered to be in the public domain, which led to a few releases like this one. Is it a good way to watch one of my favorite westerns? Not really, but it's definitely interesting and has a charm all its own. One that somehow manages to enhance my fondness for its better releases too, if I'm being honest. Most important of all, the movie's theme song still hits.
He's the guy who's the talk of the town with the restless gun. Don't you bother to pull him around. Keeps the varmints on the run, boy. Keeps the varmints on the run.
There are some other nice to haves when it comes to the format too, like the many bonus features that used to come with movies when they'd get a home release, or the commentary tracks they always had available on them. I love some of these commentary tracks so much that I've occasionally added a movie to my Plex server specifically so that I could listen to them like they're a podcast while I'm on the go or working out. Even something as minute as a unique or creative menu, something we don't get that often anymore, goes a long way in enhancing the movie watching experience. It may not seem like much, but it shows that effort and care was put into this home release.
Shrek 2? What kind of title is that? What about Shrek 2, Day of the Donkey?
Oh boy.
Or Shrek 2, The Donkey's Revenge?
This is going to be a problem.
What about Shrek 2, Too Fast, Too Donkey?
On that note, remember DVD games? A ton of movies used to pack everything from trivia to PC exclusive minigames or straight up demos for big box titles on them, and they were a great way to add some extra value to these releases. Like, okay, I didn't own an original Xbox as a kid, but it would have been cool to get to play the included demo for Star Wars Battlefront on the original trilogy box set if I had. Sure, these games and bonus features weren't always the best, and we're ultimately here for the movie, and that's what matters most, but who's to say that they can't deepen our fondness for the films they're attached to? They give us the means to more fully immerse ourselves in the world of the movies, and there's something that we largely don't get anymore. The curation of this stuff was a labor of love from the filmmakers, or the people preparing the home release, and they can still be a lot of fun to sift through.
Well, it's just you can watch online.
You can't watch it online, okay? These Blu-rays have like exclusive special features, you bitch.
The impact that a DVD can have on your relationship with films still doesn't stop there. We haven't even gotten into the joys of all the alternate cuts of movies that are available on the format. If you're like me and you like indulging in the alternate cuts of some of your all-time favorites, DVD is a price-efficient way to do that. Some of my favorite examples of this are all the old Miramax releases of Jackie Chan's Hong Kong filmography. Many of his classic films got new cuts that removed scenes, replaced music, and included a brand new dub specifically for the Western market. And I honestly believe that the best way to own many of these versions is on DVD. Though some of them may be available digitally or have gotten a Blu-ray release at one point or another, DVD feels like the way to go with them because of how widely available and inexpensive they are. I was able to find a set of 8 of these movies for less than $5 on eBay. And given the quality of these versions of the movies themselves and the fact that they're probably using the same master as any Blu-ray version that's out there, I think that's a great price for them. These may be the versions of the movies I remember from my childhood and may be worth playing from time to time for the fun of it, but they're also best kept as secondary versions for fans of the Hong Kong originals. And as far as I'm concerned, that price point reflects that. Sorry, but no amount of Alan Tam going from a Chinese accent while he's singing to a British one whenever he's speaking in Armor of God will change that.
Do you want to see Laura killed?
Hey.
Then wake up and respect our situation. We have to get that armor back at any cost. Good night.
And the same goes double for Jackie's hilariously obvious sound double in The Accidental Spy.
I know this sounds strange, but I use my intuition.
I got them into this. Help me get them out first.
Another interesting way that the format allows us to change our relationship with a movie is in the many language options it gives us. While it is true that you can often switch languages on streaming services like Netflix or on newer releases of movies, that isn't always the case. The same goes for newer home releases of some films, especially if they're done by companies like Criterion, since they're usually more interested in providing a comprehensive release of films in their original language than they are in tracking down every single dub it's ever received. On the subject of Criterion, the Criterion channel doesn't offer much in the way of alternate audio or subtitle selections either. And apps like Disney Plus don't always offer movies in certain languages unless your account happens to have been made in a country that speaks it, or you're in that country at the time you want to watch it. Now, to be fair, there are understandable reasons for this, like how licensing some of these dubs is probably a nightmare. But that does also mean that DVDs offer something that's becoming increasingly hard to find. If you happen to be bilingual, or trying to become bilingual, watching a movie in a different language is a great way to practice your comprehension. I used to be close friends with an Italian English teacher, and she once told me that one of the best ways to become fluent in a second language is to fully immerse yourself in it. Because she knew that I'm a huge film guy and that I was interested in improving my French at the time, she suggested revisiting some of my favorite shows and movies and watching them in the language, either with the French captions on if they were accurate to the audio, or without any captions at all. And she was totally right. I've done this on and off over the years and have been able to follow along and recall some of the French classes I took through high school and college. I'm far from fluent and probably sound like Joey from Friends if I actually tried to speak the language, but I'm proud of myself and it's been fun experiencing a bunch of movies I love in a different language.
Doesn't it make you proud to be Scottish? Mais c'est une punition d'être écossais!
Not to mention, being able to flip a movie you've already seen into another language may make it easier for you to connect with a family member that isn't necessarily fluent in the original one. Call me nuts, but accessibility options are nice, you know? People should be allowed to watch something like that if they want to, and if the dub exists in the first place. Who cares if it makes everything sound like a Godard film?
Qui êtes-vous?
Silence, derrière. Mon nom est Dark Vador.
Or in the case of the Before trilogy, an Eric Romer film.
S'il y a quelque chose de magique dans ce monde, je pense pas qu'on le trouve sans faire un effort de compréhension et de partage.
Even if you don't speak another language, you might discover another layer to a movie you love from the change-up itself. Not being able to follow along with the dialogue means that you'll have to overcompensate by studying the visual storytelling or the performances themselves. Plus, it's just plain fun sometimes. I don't know, call me nuts, but we should encourage experiencing the high art that's the Japanese dub of Rush Hour 2.
頼むから話を複雑にしないでくれよ。そりゃこっちのセリフだ。どいつもこいつもわけわからん。
So to wrap things up, DVDs are cool. Exhibit A. People are literally giving them away these days. They're loaded with tons of bonus features and goodies, and many of them don't even look that bad if you know what you're doing with them. When it comes to watching movies, I've found that going back to standard definition discs has reminded me of what the most important part of enjoying the medium is. The story, and whether or not we get something, be it enjoyment or contemplation out of it. As long as those needs are fulfilled, I don't think I care how I watch something. I may still try to watch it in HD if it's easily available to me in it, but if I find myself drawn to a specific film and know that it's only a short trip to the library away or just that much cheaper on DVD, then standard resolution's fine. For God's sake, I wear contacts. I'm no stranger to a bit of blurriness. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and that if you did, you consider subscribing, turning on notifications for this channel, or just answering the question of the day. So yeah, bye.
It looks just like a CD, but it holds much more information, and it's redefining home entertainment.
The world is turning to DVD for a better way to watch movies and concert videos. DVD isn't just better than a VCR, it's amazingly better.